Hope did not fall with thunder, it slipped quietly from my hands like dust escaping through a crack in time. I did not notice at first. Loss is always polite in the beginning, it waits for silence before speaks once. Hope lived in my chest, a small, stubborn light, refusing the dark like a child who believes in morning. I fed it dreams, watered it with promises, let it grow wild and careless. But the world has sharp corners and hope bruises easily. Every unanswered prayer, every door closed without reason, every smile that hid a goodbye carved small fractures, invisible at first, but growing hope learned to limp. Still it followed me faithful even when wounded. I told myself it was enough, that surviving meant believing that broken things still had purpose. But hope grew tired of being brave alone. It watched me settle for less than I deserved, for silence instead of truth. Each compromise pulled another thread loose, until hope, once bright and reckless, sat quietly in the corner of my soul. Not dead, just afraid of being born again, only to be buried. I tried to save it, I swear I did. I spoke kind words to myself, pretended I still believed. But hope knows when it is being lied to. It cracked softly like ice beneath cautious feet, and I stood there listening to the sound of something beautiful giving up. After hope broke silence, moved in, unpacking its boxes slowly. The days became heavier, not because they were worse, but because they were empty. I learned how to wake up without expecting, how to breathe without asking for more, how to smile without meaning it. People said I was strong, they always say that when they don't know what else to say. Strength became my disguise, worn so often I forgot what lived underneath at night. I searched for the pieces of the hope I lost, as if the dark might return them. But darkness does not give back, it only keeps memories replayed like unfinished songs, stopping just before the chorus. Where belief used to live, I remembered who I was before. Disappointment taught me restraint before love came with conditions. Hope used to run ahead of me, laughing, certain the road would open. Now I walked alone, counting steps, afraid of arriving anywhere. Every dream felt dangerous, like glass in bare hands, beautiful but ready to cut. So I learned to dream quietly in case the world was listening. Even joy felt suspicious, like a guest who might leave early, taking everything with it. I asked myself, was hope naive, or was the world simply cruel? No answer came, only the echo of trying. And yet somewhere beneath the ruin something refused to disappear, a faint pulse, a memory of light, still breathing. Broken hope does not vanish, it waits, it waits for a reason or a miracle or a moment. Careless enough to let it rise, I stopped asking why, because why has sharp edges and cuts deeper each time it is touched. Instead, I learned how to endure, how to exist in the space between wanting and accepting, where nothing grows but patience. The world kept moving, unbothered by my pauses, by the way my heart hesitated. I watched others believe freely, their hopes loud and unafraid, like birds unaware of storms. I envied them, not for their happiness, but for their courage to expect. Expectation became my enemy, a trap disguised as possibility, so I buried it carefully. Days blurred into routine, safe, predictable, empty like rooms with no windows. I told myself this was peace, but peace should not feel like mourning for a life still being lived. Some nights I spoke to the ceiling, asking nothing, just making sure my voice still existed. Loneliness does strange things, it teaches you how to disappear while remaining present. I became skilled at fading, at being half here, half elsewhere, yet even in absence hope whispered, weak but persistent. It did not ask for grand futures, only for honesty, only for one unguarded moment. I ignored it, afraid of what wanting again might cost, afraid of rebuilding on fragile ground. But broken hope is patient, it understands fear because it was born from it. It waited beside me in every quiet decision, in every almost belief, until one day I felt it stir, not as light but as resolve. Resolve did not arrive like salvation, it came tired, wearing the weight of everything I had survived. It did not promise miracles, only motion, only the courage to stand still without collapsing. I realized hope did not fail me, it followed me into every ruin and waited without complaint. Broken hope is not absence, it is belief with scars. It remembers every fall I touched, the fear I had avoided found it trembling. Human, not monstrous, as I imagined. Pain had made a home in me, but so had endurance, quiet, uncelebrated, real. I began to listen again, not for answers but for truth. Truth does not comfort, it steadies like a hand on the back. In a burning room I stopped measuring life by outcomes and started honoring survival, one breath at a time. Hope did not ask me to leap, only to step carefully. Honestly, some days I failed, some days I retreated, and hope stayed. It did not scold, it did not leave, it simply remained. I learned that healing is not repair, it is acceptance. Without surrender, it is standing with what remains. Broken hope softened, it learned humility, it learned restraint, but it also learned persistence, a quieter strength that does not need applause. I carried it differently now, not like a fragile treasure, but like a companion, one who had seen my worst nights and chose to stay. Belief returned slowly like light, learning how to enter a ruined house through cracks. Not doors. I stopped waiting for certainty. It had never loved me back. Instead, I welcomed maybe was gentler. It allowed mistakes. It allowed rest. Broken hope reshaped my prayers. They became quieter, more honest, less demanding. I no longer begged the future. I listened to the present and found it speaking softly. There were days I wanted to quit, to lie down inside indifference and call it peace. Hope understood. It sat beside me, saying nothing. Sometimes survival is the bravest form of faith. I noticed small things again, the way morning stretches before waking, the sound of rain forgiving the ground. These were not miracles, but they were real, and real was enough. Hope stopped chasing happiness. It chose meaning, a heavier, truer thing. I learned that joy does not shout, it hums low and steady. Broken hope taught me boundaries, not walls but doors that open with intention. I forgave myself for believing too much, for trusting too deeply. Those were not weaknesses, they were evidence of life. The world did not become kinder, but I became steadier, and hope scarred, reshaped, alive, walked beside me, not leading, not following, but matching my pace. The future no longer looked like a promise, it looked like a question, waiting patiently. I did not rush to answer. I had learned what haste costs and what silence protects. Broken hope warned me not with fear, but with memory. It reminded me where I had been so I could choose where not to return. I stopped chasing versions of myself that only existed to please others or to prove survival. Now I walked with intention, even when the path was unclear, even when doubt traveled beside me. Doubt was no longer the enemy, it was a compass, keeping me honest. Hope adjusted its shape again. It no longer demanded belief, only presence. Be here, even when it hurts, especially then. I faced the ruins without flinching, named my losses, let them be. Real grief did not weaken me, it anchored me, gave weight to my love. Broken hope held grief carefully, like something sacred, not something to erase. I learned that rebuilding is not returning, it is becoming. Some days were quiet victories, others were silent endurance. Both counted. The future did not bloom, it unfolded slowly, and hope, still broken, still breathing, did not promise arrival, only direction. Meeting others again felt dangerous, like opening windows after a long storm, unsure what the air might bring. I carried broken hope carefully, afraid it would frighten them, or worse, be dismissed. Some people mistook my caution for distance. They could not see the ruins I protected or the effort it took to stand open. I listened more than I spoke. Words have weight when hope is fragile. Silence became my language. Not everyone stayed. Broken hope expected that it did not take it personally. Some hearts are not meant to hold each other, no matter how gently they try. But there were moments, rare and unannounced, where understanding appeared, a look that did not demand a voice, that did not rush, a presence that did not leave. Broken hope recognized those moments like a scar. Recognizing another scar, connection did not heal everything, but it softened the edges, made the weight shareable. I learned that being seen does not require perfection, only honesty. Some people loved loudly, others loved carefully, both mattered. Broken hope learned trust again, not blindly but intentionally. It chose who to lean toward and when to stand alone. Loneliness still visited, but it no longer lived there, because broken hope had learned this truth. Even damaged light can be shared. The past did not leave quietly, it never does. It waited for moments of weakness, for nights when the world slowed and memory had room to speak. Broken hope did not flinch. This time it had learned the shape of regret and no longer mistook it for truth. I revisited old wounds, not to reopen them, but to understand their language. Pain had been trying to teach me, not punish me. I forgave what I could, and what I couldn't I released. From carrying, some apologies never arrived, some explanations never formed, and I stopped waiting. Closure is not a gift others give, it is a decision. Broken hope helped me choose to stop bleeding for the past, to stop paying interest on old grief. I honored who I was then, naive, brave, unprepared. That version of me did their best with what they knew. The past softened, not because it changed, but because I did. Broken hope made peace, not with what happened, but with the fact that it did, and in that acceptance something loosened. The weight lifted just enough to breathe. The present felt unfamiliar, like a room rearranged. While I was gone, everything recognizable yet changed. Broken hope stood with me, not as a warning, but as a witness. I learned how to exist without rehearsing disaster, how to let moments arrive without suspicion, how to stay. Staying was harder than leaving. It required faith in what was happening now, not what might happen next. I stopped measuring time by pain and started noticing rhythm, the rise and fall of ordinary days. Broken hope rested here in the mundane, in repetition. Not every day needed meaning, some only needed presence. I allowed myself laughter again, unplanned, unprotected. Joy did not erase the scars, it rested beside them, proof that both could exist. I let the present touch me without armor, without apology. Broken hope trusted me now to carry it, without crushing it, to believe without abandoning myself. This moment did not promise forever, but it was real, and real was enough. I claimed this breath, this step, this now, and hope still broken, still honest, belonged here. Broken hope no longer trembled at the edges of life. It had learned to stand fully in the center, neither loud nor hidden, simply present. It no longer begged for proof, no longer demanded certainty. It had discovered its own rhythm. I saw it reflected in small acts. A hand offered without expectation, a word spoken with care, a quiet smile in the wrong moment. Hope had grown wiser, not unbroken but resilient, patient. Like river water wearing stone, I recognized its power, not in what it promised, but in what it endured. It did not chase dreams, it carried them carefully, and let them grow slowly in their own time. Broken hope taught me courage, not the courage of heroism, but the courage of living, of showing up, even when nothing is guaranteed. I began to notice the world again, the subtle shift of light, the way wind moves through trees, the rhythm of rain on the roof. These small truths mattered more because they were real, because they could not be taken away. Hope did not demand grandeur, only acknowledgement, only presence, only the willingness to keep going. I realized hope was not fragile. I had mistaken my fear for its failure. Now I understood hope survives not because it is untouched, but because it persists. Even when broken, it carries the scars of everything it has faced and still chooses to rise each day. Small, unseen, unstoppable, I walked through streets I had once ignored, the cracks in the pavement no longer frightening but familiar. Honest like old friends I had forgotten. Broken hope accompanied me, not as a burden, but as a quiet guide. It whispered in moments of doubt, reminded me of the strength I carried even when I thought I had none. I noticed the lives around me, the people moving through their own storms, each carrying fragments, each searching for pieces that might not exist. Empathy grew slowly like a tree in winter, quiet, persistent, stubborn. I began to offer help, not because I expected gratitude, not because I sought redemption, but because broken hope had taught me generosity of heart, and in giving I realized I had not lost everything. Some things could not be taken, some things had grown stronger in their absence. I learned patience with others, patience with myself, patience with the slow unfolding of life. Broken hope is not impatient, it does not demand instant answers. It waits, and it watches, and it understands. It had been forged in my mistakes, tempered in sorrow, polished by endurance, and now it shone quietly steady, unafraid. I finally understood hope is not a thing to be owned, it is a companion, ever-changing, ever-forgiving, ever alive. It does not belong to the future or the past, it exists here in the moments. I am brave enough to stay, and I stayed. Time moved differently now, not as a river rushing, but as a patient tide pulling and releasing, leaving treasures and wreckage alike. Broken hope measured the hours not in minutes or days, but in breaths taken without despair, in moments survived in love given quietly. I remembered every loss, not to mourn endlessly, but to honor the strength it gave me. Each heartbreak a tutor, each betrayal a teacher, each grief a map of my own endurance. Memory became less a prison and more a gallery, where even broken things were beautiful, even fractured love held lessons, even pain carried meaning. I began to notice my own patterns, the ways I had doubted myself, the ways I had believed too quickly, the ways I had abandoned my own heart. I forgave the younger me and the me who had failed again, and the me who had been afraid of everything. Broken hope did not demand perfection, only presence, only honesty, only the willingness to keep learning. I learned to sit with uncertainty, to breathe when answers refused to come, to trust the slow unfolding of life, even when it terrified me. The past no longer haunted it, guided the present, no longer intimidated it, welcomed the future, no longer loomed it, waited patiently. I was no longer naive, but I was not bitter. I carried wisdom, not as armor, but as light, and broken hope, no longer fragile, no longer hidden, walked beside me steady, alive.